It is a fine Friday night, ladies and gentlemen. Day 175 in a row of live streaming. Going to be super happy to go through and answer as many questions as I possibly can. First thing is, I literally just sat down on my computer, so let me go through and see if there are any updates that I need to give you with injuries that I need to give you overall that maybe have occurred over the past 2 to 3 hours, because to be completely honest with you, I've not been paying attention. But looks like the Bears do not plan on putting Justin Fields in the IR, but Justin Fields does remain week to week. Christian McCaffrey did not practice today, which obviously means, okay, maybe he will not be playing on Monday. You have no Deebo Samuel practicing today either. So yeah, I mean, very difficult to go through and rely on those players for this next week. Kyler Murray ruled out. You weren't really expecting Kyler to play regardless. DK Metcalf's going to be a game time decision. And then outside of that, Jeff Wilson Jr. is not going to be on the injury report. So you possibly see a little bit Jeff Wilson Jr. in this game, where it's not just the Raheem Mostert show, but still, nonetheless, Mostert does project out to be a top 5 running back based off what we had this season. And this is someone that you do need to go through and start. We have sadly no Pat Freiermuth. However, we do have Deontay Johnson playing. I mean, I would much prefer having Freiermuth than Deontay, to be completely honest, but it is what it is. But I think that should be the primary updates that we have. And let me pull up the questions here. If you have not done so already, please make sure you go down there, drop a like on this live stream, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you wanted to check out any of those pick'ems over on Underdog Fantasy, now is the best time to do so, because if you sign up to Underdog with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. Plus, you'll get our rest of season rankings. And on top of that, if you are new to Underdog Fantasy, a Lamar Jackson special pick of more than less than half a total yard. And since so many of y'all used promo code FLOCK on Underdog last week, they're actually hooking you up next week as well. It doesn't matter if you signed up last year, yesterday, today, tomorrow. As long as you use code FLOCK next week as well, you're going to get an Amon-Ra St. Brown special pick'em on top of that. And on top of that, you're going to get a LeBron James special pick'em next week, more than less than half a total points. So make sure you are taking advantage. Let's start answering some questions here. James Conner coming out saying, between Christian Watson, Zay Flowers, or Brian Robinson in a half PPR flex spot. Obviously, half PPR in comparison to a full PPR league, you're going to be a little bit less likely to go through and push that wide receiver up for that flex. I mean, we have Brian Robinson ranked as the top guy here, where with Robinson, you do have the guaranteed workload. Obviously, you do have to be a little bit concerned just given the fact that the offense is bad, but they should be leading the majority of this game against the Giants, where they're almost 3-point favorites. Shane says, Michael Mayer or Darren Waller. We'll go Darren Waller. I mean, maybe you can make an argument. Oh, okay, well, if you are looking at Darren Waller, this tight end that has a good matchup against Washington, if you think that he is more so used as a receiver in this offense, and we've seen what receivers have done to this Washington secondary, obviously that's a stretch of an argument. But still, flex Brian Robinson, Lockett, or Jordan Addison. I think we are most likely going to be going with I don't know. If Metcalf misses, you have to go Tyler Lockett regardless. But if it's a full PPR format and Metcalf plays, I think we go Jordan Addison. Non-PPR league, we go Brian Robinson. Jacoby Time says, Kyron for Puka and Higgins, we're 2-4 in a 12-team league. If you are 2-4 and need points right now and you do not have the depth at the wide receiver position, completely fine going out there and selling the injured running back for someone that's going to give you something today. Clutchbox says Thomas or Njoku. We're going to go David Njoku. And then also Gabe Davis or Cortland Sutton. We'll for sure go with, oh my gosh. I want to for sure tell you to go Gabe Davis, but I'm honestly probably an idiot here, because if we go back and look at these underdog player props and what the expectations are this week, you have Gabe Davis at 33.5 receiving yards for his underdog pick'em. I do like the more than 33.5 receiving yards, but still to see that as the projection does make me hesitant, especially if we go and look at what you have for the Denver Broncos here. Whereas you have Cortland Sutton with a pick'em, I believe, of 51.5 yards. Yeah, 51.5. So can everybody spam the chat? Who would you rather have? Would you rather have Gabe Davis or Cortland Sutton? Because my initial thought is going to be to go ahead and take Gabe Davis. But if you do look at those projections, they have Sutton as the guy. So please let me know in the live chat. Are you going to go Sutton or Gabe Davis? We got Davis. Yeah, so it looks like the majority of people are saying Gabe Davis as well, which is kind of funny because if that's the case, I think people should be either going and taking the more than 33.5 receiving yards on Underdog for Gabe Davis or the fewer than 51.5 total yards for Cortland Sutton. Now, our next question coming out from Rough Time says Geno or Stafford. I mean, I actually really like both players. If DK Metcalf were to be good to go, I'd probably go Geno. He has an implied team total of 26 points against Arizona. And then if Metcalf misses, I think it's close enough where we have these guys ranked to back-to-back. You could go Stafford. And then drop one, Sanders, Jacoby, Nico, and Moss. Super tough, but at this point, probably have to drop Miles Sanders there. Jaggy says 5-1 full BBR offered Jefferson, Ridley, Robinson for Flowers, Pickens, Kamara. Accept your hold. Thanks. Thank you. 5-1 roster. Easily give me Jefferson over Kamara. Brian Robinson, Zay Flowers, probably Flowers. It's not a massive gap. Ridley versus Pickens, kind of up to you. I think that I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the Justin Jefferson side on a 5-1 roster. If you were, say, 1-5, then obviously we'd go with the Alvin Kamara side of things. But next question coming out from, I believe, Nick, who says, 10-team full BBR, where we are 3-3, favored this week. We have Hurts, Gibbs, Kamara, AJ Chase, Addison, Brees, Amari, Pitts, JT Palmer, Tank, Connor, Michael Thomas. How can I get better? Okay, so if you're looking at this team full BBR, we're fine with these running backs that are getting the majority of their work as receivers in their respective offenses. The wide receivers were elite at the very top end. We have Jordan Addison expanding his role as well. This is a phenomenal team. If you have Jonathan Taylor down there on the bench, even while Breece Hall is on bye, I would say that you are strong enough at running back to go ahead and afford to see if we can sell, say, one of these RBs. I mean, you can kind of pick who that is. But if you could sell like Kamara and Pitts and go get up to Kelsey somehow, some way, or maybe if you wanted to sell a lesser running back and go pivot over to like Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, I think that could make sense. Okay. Now, Low Rise coming out saying 12-team BBR double flex, keeper league 3-3. 2 trades on the table. Send Dell Osborne to get Higgins. I would get T. Higgins there easily. And then send Lawrence and Osborne to get Burrow. Do I take him? I like the idea of both trades. I personally think that there's a larger, I don't know. I would do either or. Maybe we can use the tiebreaker or the keeper cost that you would have. And if you'd be more inclined to keep Burrow or if you'd be more inclined to keep Higgins next year. I expect the offense to hit the ground running coming out of the bye. I really like both trades. I don't necessarily think Tank Dell's going to matter in a 3-player keeper. I don't think he's going to be a top 36 player for you to keep next season. In terms of if we want Burrow or the upgrade from Lawrence to Burrow or the upgrade from Osborne to Higgins, I don't know. Up to you, my friend. To be completely honest, probably comes down to your league and if you would feel viable streaming quarterbacks. Get Flock says, Gabe Kamara for Jonathan Taylor. Should I be worried? Full BBR format, not looking good. Non-PBR league, obviously would rather have Jonathan Taylor. So I think it depends on that format. I mean, especially if you are looking at Kamara. Now, Miles says 5-1, 12-team BBR, 3 trade questions. Trade Myers, Dobbs, Hunt for Deontay T. Higgins. Dobbs and Hunt versus Deontay. Give me Deontay. Myers versus Higgins. Give me Higgins. DK for AJ Brown. Wait, what? Oh, no. Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf for AJ Brown, Hollywood, Godwin. I mean, Walker to AJ Brown, up to you. DK to Hollywood and Godwin, probably Hollywood and Godwin. Finally, Walker, DK, Hawkinson for AJ Brown, Waddle, Komet, Hollywood, Connor. Which of the last 2 is better? Okay. Walker to AJ Brown, similar move. DK to Waddle, give me Waddle. Hawkinson for Komet, Hollywood, definitely give me Hawkinson. I would say the second one's going to be better than the third one. And out of all these trades, the first one is the one that I would rank it first, second, third. I think the third's the worst, the first is the best. Jacob says Jefferson Roschon for Aaron Jones, Deontay, and Drake London. I think it very much depends on the situation that you are in. I would say in a vacuum, you have more value on the Jefferson side of things. But at the same time, I mean, if you're in a spot where you would say, well, Mason, I'm 1-4 and I need production right now, then obviously sometimes you'll have to sell them low. Daniel says 12-team full BBR 5-1. No flex spot. We have Burrow, Smith, Bijan, Robinson, Moss, Pierce, McLaurin, Myers, Wilson, Deontay, MT, Kelsey. What should we do to keep winning? And then wide receivers to start. We're going to go ahead at wide receiver. We will start. Oh my gosh, wide receiver is gross. Deontay and McLaurin. I really don't know if we want to be starting Myers whenever you have no Jimmy Garoppolo here. I would say what we would probably look to do if possible is if we could go through and if we could upgrade quarterback in a league where you don't have a flex spot, I think that would be advantageous just because if you remove the flex, quarterback and tight end is going to make up a higher percentage of your starting lineup output overall. Obviously, we already have the elite level tight end with Travis Kelce. Luke says, do you like this trade, Adams and Osborne for Barkley and Pittman? I'm 5-1. Our running backs are CMC, Chuba, Gibbs. My receivers are Amon-Ra, Ayuk, Adams, and Amari. Typically, I'd say there's more value on the Davante Adams side of things, that it's not a spot where we want to go through and look to sell Davante Adams. But no, in this trade in particular, I do think that it actually makes sense for us to go out there and get Barkley and Pittman. Now, Vic says 3-3 full BBR on a 3-game losing streak. I gutted on our team on top of running backs, but the new team is Hurts, Barkley, Walker, Mixon, Hall, Robinson, Chase, Adams. This is an absurd team. We have an elite quarterback. We have 5 playable running backs. We have 3 wide receiver ones and Sam Laporta. This is one of the craziest teams I've seen. I would assume, though, that has to be like I don't know. That has to be like a 6-team league, right? There's no way in hell there are 10 teams in that league. Now, Jay says 3-3 PPR. What should you do with Ridley? Trade or hold? We talked about this last night. The issue is if Ridley is the laughingstock of every fantasy football league right now, realistically speaking, what do you expect to be able to get for Calvin Ridley? Other players I can bundle with the trade are JT, Bijan, Henry, Godwin, Watson, Deontay. I would love to go out there and say trade away Calvin Ridley. I mean, we showed it in the live stream last night. I barely drafted Calvin Ridley at all. I'm only in 2% of leagues. Our least drafted Jacksonville Jaguar this year in over 400 underdog drafts. So I'm not like a Ridley fan by any means, but at this point, I'd say you probably have to keep Ridley. I don't necessarily think you're going to get anything. Now, Bullman says 10-team at BBR single flex. Looking to fill in the flex. Should we go Pittman, Palmer, JSN? If DK will start or not, the news doesn't look good. Yes, the DK dealing with those 2 injuries and game time decision. We're still going to go Michael Pittman regardless. As we've been mentioning, we've been calling Jackson Smith and Jigba that buy low candidate. But with that being said, we're still not playing JSN until we at least see him out there productive, right? Well, once we see JSN give us a week close to what Michael Pittman's done this year, then we can consider it. It is a very tough matchup for Pittman going up against Cleveland, though. John says, Wan'Dale or KJ full BBR. I'm going to go KJ Osborne even in the tough matchup. I know Wan'Dale is a much better one. Josh says, trade Mixon and Zay for DeAndre Swift. We have Olave and Puka. If it is a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, I'm completely fine with you doing this. If it's a double flex league, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult to sell that. Tougher to send away that wide receiver depth. Jason says 10-team double flex 4-2. We have Tua, A.J. Brown, Kupp, Keenan, Lamb, Dobbs, JSN, Jacobs, Aaron Jones, James Cook, Sanders, Warren, Hogginson. What are your thoughts? We have an elite quarterback. We have an elite tight end. We are focusing on running backs, wide receivers with upside down there on the bench. Pretty much exactly what I am looking for. I would say that It's impressive that we are 4-2, considering that we dealt with the Cup injury early on, considering that we dealt with the Aaron Jones injury early on. I think it's a phenomenal team. I mean, it's a double flex league, so we can start Brown, Cup, Keenan, and Lamb every week. I think we're in a great spot, and honestly, we just need to be chilling with sitting on our hands. I think we're going to crush rest of season. Marco says 3-3, half PPR, 10-team league, where we have Lamar, Eckler, Kamara, Allen, Amari, Kelsey, JT, and then on the bench, Smith, Lockett, Hunt, Deontay, Achane. Should we make any trades and any starter changes? So if I was going to make a change in the starting lineup, I would want to go through and start Devonta Smith. I think he's the best guy down there on the bench to get in the lineup, especially in a matchup against Miami where, this is going to be such a high-scoring game overall. And Smith, while he disappointed last week, he still did have 11 targets. If we were to be playing Devonta Smith here, we would have to probably go through and bench Amari Cooper. And to be honest with you, with Watson's injury, I think that we would play Devonta Smith over Amari, even though I do have a lot of Amari this year. And then in terms of making any trades, I would say once we get Deontay back from the IR and we're sitting here and we have Smith, Lockett, Deontay all on the bench, you have so much depth with this team that if we could sell like Amari and Devonta Smith or Amari and Deontay Johnson and go get a long-term piece like Jefferson, I think we can afford it on a roster like this where we're so damn strong. I understand we're only 3-3, but at the same time, you had no Austin Eckler early on in the year and no Alvin Kamara. Should be much better going forward. Lou says 10-team BBR league, wide receiver 3, start decision for the week. Dobbs or KJ Osborne versus Curtis Samuel. Who do you choose? I am going to go ahead. I'm going to take KJ Osborne. He has an extremely difficult matchup going up against San Fran. Didn't do well last week. Obviously, there was not much passing volume. It was a good matchup going up against the Chicago Bears. But if you are projecting this out right now, you do have Kirk Cousins with the low implied team total only at 18.5 points. If you compare this to Green Bay is supposed to score about 4 more points according to Vegas sports books. I just think that you are going to see more of the production go through the air, especially against the 49ers, specifically for the Vikings, than you would see with the Packers. But can everybody spam the chat? Let me know if I'm losing my mind here. I don't want to come out here and act like KJ Osborne's some great play. Obviously, he's not. But who would you start out of this list? Are you going to start KJ Osborne, Curtis Samuel, or Romeo Dobbs? Please let me know. Please let me know. Okay. We got KJ. Curtis, Dobbs, Curtis. So it does look like it's split. I was assuming everybody was going to say Curtis just because he scored a touchdown last week. Bradley says, any more best ball drafts? Appreciate you, my friend. And yes, sir, we're going to be doing more best ball drafts. Literally my favorite thing to do, to be honest with you. I'm assuming Underdog does not have a tournament that's live right now, rest of season, no? And the weekly drafts is a little more DFS style. If I was going to participate in weekly drafts, it would be on Sunday morning. But the reason I'm not able to do it is because obviously we're live streaming every Sunday morning. I'll pull up Underdog and see if they have another tournament live at the moment. Miles says Roshan or Kareem Hunt rest of season. I'd probably go Roshan rest of season. Esteban says, should we trade Diggs for Adams and Brees? I think it's very much dependent on your team. I will say I project out Devontae Adams as that low-end wide receiver 1 and Brees Hall as a low-end RB1. So it really does depend on your league settings. It's definitely a fair deal, right? But it does depend on your team. Diggs for sure the best player in it. Now, Artie says just traded Downs, Pierce, and Judy for Ayuk. How are we liking it? Similar to the last trade. It's very difficult to know. Do we want the depth Instead, are we incentivized to go out there and build around the stud? So if it's a league where you start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, and it's a 10-team format, I love it. If it's that 12-team league where you start 3 wide receivers and 2 flexes, then I probably don't like it as much. Wounded says 10-team PPR, Thielen and Addison for Aaron Jones and Amari. Give me Amari over Addison. Jones versus Thielen. 99% of people in the chat would say Thielen. I think it's up to you. If you need a running back, I'd make the deal. Doug Van Dan says PPR, Wan'Dale, Elijah, or Jameson at the flex. I drafted so much Wan'Dale Robinson in Underdog Best Ball drafts that I really do hope it is Wan'Dale. But I'm probably going to go ahead and take Jameson here. I mean, with Jameson, obviously you don't get the consistent target volume. He's just in a much better offense, even if it is a much worse matchup. Ray says 12-team PBR 4-2. We have Hurts, CMC, Walker, Hunt, Herbert, Spears, Amon-Ra, Ayuk, Hopkins, Jason, Johnston. Good offer Chase for Walker. Not sure what to do. No running back depth. Yes, obviously the CMC injury, then to turn around and sell Kenneth Walker and be left over starting Tajee Spears and Kareem Hunt this week. Or just being forced to go hit the waiver wires would just be brutal. Now, with that being said, my friend, it's a 4-2 team. We do have some flexibility here for what we can be doing in the long term. So honestly, I think I would go ahead. I think I would say, well, it's going to put us in a nasty situation. You have to make the play for the best player. Let's go get Jamar Chase. Mark says PBR 4-2, 12-team league. We have Cousins, Dak, Bijan, Algier, Sanders, Hubbard, Smith, Watson, Thielen, Collins, Wilson, Palmer, Hogginson, Frymuth. Good offered Stafford and Evans for Dak. What are you thinking? I think Zach Evans is a non-factor. I think if you are looking at Zach Evans as a running back that maybe does something this week, but honestly, we just have no idea if that will happen. So it's really just Matthew Stafford or Dak Prescott. I think most people would probably prefer Stafford rest of season, no? Can everybody spam the chat? Who would you rather have rest of season? Dak Prescott or Matthew Stafford? And real quick as we wait, Kurt Work coming out says, what's up, bro? Judy, Evans, Algier, or Gus for the flex spot. Non-BBR, I'm probably going to go Gus. Full BBR, we're going to go Judy. I just legitimately have no idea what to expect with any of the running backs in Los Angeles, so I'm not starting any of them. I have no idea. Now, Stafford. Yeah, it looks like everybody here is saying Stafford over Dak. Not going to fault anybody for that, obviously, with having both Kupp as well as Puka in this offense. But Salvador says, should we trade Kyler and Downs for Ridley? We already have Jalen Hurts. Also, who would be in our last flex? JSN or Judy? Appreciate you, Flock. Appreciate you, my friend. If Metcalf misses, we are going to go with Jackson Smith and Jigba. If Metcalf plays, we will go Jerry Judy. Josh Downs, I have him in a ton of Underdog Best Ball drafts. In reality, in your regular shallow redraft format, I don't necessarily think Josh Downs makes a big difference. So, like, if we were looking at, say, the difference between Kyler and Ridley, if we already have Jalen Hurts, if Ridley's the best wide receiver we can get, then Ridley's the best wide receiver we can get, you know. And ultimately, I'd probably be okay with it. I would just say, let's please make sure we're going to go through and shop from the team that has Anthony Richardson for the team that has Justin Fields. And make sure that's the best price that we could get for Kyler Murray. But at the same time, I mean, there's a possibility that you just picked up Kyler Murray off the waiver wire, right? And it's essentially the same as you picking up Calvin Ridley off waivers. But real quick, ladies and gentlemen, barely 10% of y'all have hit that like button. If you have not done so already, please go down there, drop a like on this live stream. Subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And of course, if you want to check out any of those pick'ems over on Underdog Fantasy, you can find that link in the live chat in the description in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, going to get a 100% deposit match, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. If you are new to Underdog, going to be getting a Lamar Jackson special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard for Sunday's game. And on top of that, an Amon-Ra St. Brown special pick'em, only if you use promo code FLOCK for next week. And on top of that, a LeBron James special pick'em, more than less than half a total point. So please make sure you are taking advantage of that if somehow you have not done so already, ladies and gentlemen. But our next question coming out from, I believe, Zaytoven says, "Sup, Mason? Love the content. 10-team BBR. We have Hurts, Bijan, Swift, Pacheco, Devonta, Ridley, Pittman, Nico, Laporta. Just traded Brian Robinson for T. Higgins, 4-2. Calvin Sell." And I understand, probably needed that wide receiver with Calvin Ridley taking that step backwards. Specifically with this being a full PPR format where we are looking at Brian Robinson as our RB4 at the very best, where T. Higgins can come out and T. Higgins can actually make a difference for us. I do like this move. With those circumstances, I do think that it makes sense. The professor says, bye week, are we going to go Zach Evans or Deonta Foreman? If Roshan does not play, it's Foreman easily. If Roshan plays, it is up to you, and I legitimately have no idea. The issue is, with Zach Evans, I could see him having a smaller workload than Foreman. He could have a larger workload. We just have no idea at this point. But at the same time, Zach Evans could give you literally nothing. Literally nothing. Now, Nate says, got Saquon for DJ Moore straight up. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I had DJ Moore as that sell high guy last week, and I am very surprised we're still able to see this price. Like, I would assume that most people would be off of Moore now after the Fields injury. But yeah, great deal. Great deal. All in Lawn Maintenance says 10-team full BBR, trade A.J. Brown and Walker for Tyreek and Garrett Wilson. We have Pollard, Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Metcalf, Watson, Myers, JSN. Tyreek is a tier ahead of A.J. Brown. I would clearly rather have Kenneth Walker, especially already through his bye week, than I would with Garrett Wilson. I think it is a fair trade. I personally would probably go out there and get Tyreek Hill if you want to start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. Specifically, 10-team league, when in doubt, when we can backfill off waivers, let's go with the best player. And I have Tyreek ranked as my number 1 guy rest of season. I mean, running back, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end doesn't matter considering the fact that we have the CMC injury. Kevin says trade Saquon and Pierce for Lamar. Honestly, no. I mean, I understand the concerns with Saquon with how bad this offensive line is, but still, I think you are selling at a low point there. Now, Blood's coming out saying 12-team, Happy BR, looking for a beast receiver. We have St. Brown, Wilson, Watson, JSN, Brees, Kamara, Pacheco. Was offered Chase for Amon-Ra St. Brown and Alvin Kamara. Should we take it? I think Kamara is definitely an intriguing player to see what we could get for in a half PPR format in comparison to a full PPR league. However, with that being said, I think there's more value with the Amon-Ra St. Brown and Alvin Kamara side currently. So if you were to go out there and make that move, I think you would at least need to ask for another piece in return. Kevin says 10-team, 3-3, single flex. We have Mahomes, Bijan, Barkley, Montgomery, Olave, Ridley, Andrews, Watson, Pickens, Deontay, Roshan, Warren. Trades for receivers. I'm fine with Olave. Just a heads up. I understand we're not necessarily asking anything about Olave. 14 targets last week. Olave is going to be fine going forward. I don't necessarily think he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver by any means, but does look like he'll be a wide receiver too. And then on the bench, we have Watson, Pickens, Deontay. So we have depth wide receivers. I mean, for that reason, it's going to be very difficult for us to see like a trade that makes a ton of sense. If you could package together like Watson and Pickens and go get someone in, like if you could find a Devonta Smith owner panicking, Devontae Adams owner panicking, if you wanted to go out there and make that kind of move, you can. But by no means is that something that you have to do, my friend. JX says 10-team BBR traded Barkley, Flowers, Ridley for Chase and Hopkins. So Flowers, Hopkins downgrade, Barkley, Ridley, Chase upgrade, where we have JT, ETN, Williams, HN, Tyreek, Amari, and Andrews. So the depth wide receivers weren't really doing anything for us. We get the best player in the deal. We get Jamar Chase. I think that does make sense. Now, a Johnny coming out says, outlook on Spears Rice as they're a key part of our bench. Rice has been hyper efficient from a per route run perspective. The issue is he just simply cannot get on the field for the Kansas City Chiefs. At least not get on the field enough where he's viable for us to start right now. I don't necessarily think the McCole Hardman trade helps him. I think maybe he just has another guy to compete with when it comes to snaps. I think Spears is a running back that we can start if we need to in a full BBR format. We're not going to be ever excited to start Tyjae Spears while you have Derrick Henry there. But at the same time, there are trade rumors around Derrick Henry, and it would make a lot of sense for them to sell Henry given their team and given their current situation. We have Lawrence, Jacobs, Etienne, Chase, Lamb, Waddle, Hawkinson, Eckler, Michael Thomas. Should we trade Waddle and Rice for Stephon Diggs? 100%. This is still a league that depth matters a little bit more, right? So it does make sense if we wanted to have the 3 wide receivers and 2 flexes where you always get the extra starter. But hell no. I mean, yeah, if you can sell Waddle and Rashee Rice for a player like Diggs, you have to make that move. Chris says, single flex, Devontae Adams for St. Brown. Yeah, we will go with St. Brown over Devontae Adams, my friend. Prime Iverson says 12-team, happy BR 5-1. We have Lamar, Bijan, Pacheco, Kyron, James Conner, Jefferson, Ayuk, Olave, Kittle, Kmet. Trade Jefferson for Garrett Wilson and Aaron Jones. Really strong team. And I understand that we've been decimated with injuries, but we are 5-1. And specifically on a strong team that is 5-1, where we're more so thinking about long-term upside. I think this is the kind of league where we want to go through and we want to hold on to a player like Justin Jefferson. Doug says for the flex, Hollywood Robinson or Watson. I'd probably go ahead and play Brian Robinson. Full BBR format's a little bit closer to Christian Watson, though. Matt says 4-2 Dynasty, trade Judy, a second and a third for Keenan. If you think that this wins you your league, then yes, let's do it. Obviously, we can sit here and say it's probably not a good trade when we look this offseason. Like, there will be more value on the Judy and the Pigs side. I mean, Keenan's in year 10 at this point, was drafted in 2013. But if it's going to win you this year or give you a much better shot to, then hell yeah, we have to. Dan, welcome to being a member of the flock, my friend. See that we have a question in a second. We'll get to that in just one second. Ben says, full BBR, triple flex, 1 super flex. Traded Puka Watson for Diggs and Quentin Johnston. My receivers are now Adams, Diggs, AJ Brown, Higgins, Palmer, Nico, Addison, Johnston. Was this a good move? If this is Deshaun Watson, it's going to depend on who our quarterbacks are. If it is Christian Watson, then it is an absolute no-brainer to go get Stephon Diggs. And this combined with the other Stephon Diggs deals making me think that maybe something happened to Diggs. How are y'all getting that price? Stephon says Roshan's out, stuck starting Najee and Ramondre. Oh my gosh, my man. I want to say maybe they changed Najee's usage up coming out of the bye. But obviously, if they're changing Najee's usage up coming out of the bye, I would operate under the assumption that they're using less of Najee Harris if they had time to think about it. But Mark says 10-team single flex 4-2. We have Allen, CMC, Walker, Amon-Ra, Addison, Andrews, Pacheco, Mason, Foreman, Hollywood, Amari, Lockett, Dobbs. Any moves for a wide receiver 2 or playoffs or depth? For playoffs or depth. Okay. I would say depth does not matter. This is a 4-2 team where you start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex in a 10-team league. The depth couldn't matter less. We already have Amari, Hollywood, and Lockett. We have too much depth as is. So what I would be looking to do is if I could go through and take some of these pieces, like if I could send Isaiah Pacheco and Amari Cooper and go get Justin Jefferson from a team that maybe needs some production right now, I think that would be the trade that we are looking to make. Just please, whatever you do, don't go out there and trade for depth in a league like this. Now, Stevan says package Amon-Ra with a depth piece to get A.J. Brown. Non-BBR format, yes. Full BBR league, they're about the same. Jim Bin says PBR Musgrave or Michael Mayer. Ooh, I'm going to go Musgrave this week. I think Mayer maybe has more long-term upside though. And then Downs or Dobbs. Probably going to go Dobbs given the Downs matchup. Hunt, Foreman, Evans, thanks, Space to the go. No, appreciate you, my friend. And if Roshan truly is out, then yes, we're going to go ahead. I think we're going to lock in Deonta Foreman. I mean, I know Foreman in the role that he's going to have. Zach Evans is just a complete unknown. Gavin says 10-team BBR Superflex 3-3. What would you trade to get Tyreek? We have Tua, Hurts, Geno, Saquon, Kamara, Eckler, Lamb, Adams. They need a quarterback and a running back. Really surprised to see that this team's only 3-3. I'd assume that we were much better than that. I mean, if they need a quarterback and a running back, that's probably what you got to give them, right? You probably got to send Alvin Kamara and Geno Smith, which in a 1-quarterback league, they would laugh you off the face of the planet if you offered for Tyreek Hill. But in a super flex league, if they had like Anthony Richardson and really need a QB, maybe they go ahead and make that move. Dan says 10-team league at BBR 4-2, but I feel weak. Where to be stronger? We have Puka, Diggs, Lockett, Godwin, Kamara, Henry, Aaron Jones, Spears, Ingram, Burrow. This is a great team. I would say the only thing is, I mean, here you're rostering what? 3 quarterbacks. We can't roster 3 quarterbacks. I would say after this week, decide which 2 quarterbacks you want to keep and essentially drop either Kirk Cousins or Geno Smith. I mean, obviously, if we could trade them in a package and get an upgrade elsewhere, we would. And this is operating under the assumption it's a 1-quarterback format. And in terms of us feeling quote-unquote weak, my man, you've done a great job with this team, right? We're 4-2. We dealt with Kamara's suspension earlier on in the year. We dealt with the Aaron Jones injury as well. We have a great tight end. We have an elite receiver with Diggs. And we have some quality wide receiver depth alongside that. So I'd say let's move on from the 3rd quarterback. Definitely do not need that. If you wanted to see if we could sell in a half BBR format, I'd say in a half BBR league, Kamara is going to be a little bit more appealing of a sell than obviously in that full BBR league. If you wanted to see if you could sell, say, Puka and Kamara and get an elite level running back or an elite level receiver, we can do that in a 10-team league with only 1 flex. But overall, I think it's a very strong team. Super impressive that with those running backs missing time that we managed to be 4-2. Now, Moses says, pick 2, Evans, Gus, Dotson, Deontay. For sure, we're going to go Deontay Johnson between Zach Evans, Gus, and Jahan Dotson. I don't know. I think Zach Evans probably has the highest ceiling. Gus Edwards has the highest floor. Can y'all please let me know in the live chat, are you going to go Gus Edwards or Zach Evans? I just simply have no idea what's going to happen in Los Angeles, so I'm probably planning on benching Zach Evans. No, Dan, thank you so much for being a member of the vlog, my man. Happy to have you out. But are y'all going to go Zach Evans or Gus Edwards? Let me know in the live chat. Okay. 1 vote for Evans, 2 votes for Evans, couple votes for neither. So they're telling you Zach Evans. I'm just very worried at telling someone to go through and play Zach Evans, and then he comes out and literally just doesn't even touch the ball, which is a possibility. Like, be prepared for that. Okay. Now, Lilo says 8-team, 4-2, PBR. We have Kupp, Lamb, A.J. Brown, Puka, JT, Hall, Jacobs, Etienne, Henry. Was offered CMC and Adams for Hall, Jacobs, Lamb. What are your thoughts? I think Lamb to Adams is a lateral move. I think going from Hall and Jacobs to CMC in an 8-team format where depth is very easy to come by, where we also have, Travis Etienne, right? So we're just loaded up It is an absolute no-brainer in an 8-team league. Any move that we can make to quote-unquote overpay for Christian McCaffrey, we want to do. So let's go get CMC here. Now, E. Willie says 10-team, 2-2-1, 3-3. We have Herbert, Bijan, Brees, Mostert, Chase, Olave, Thielen, Godwin, Kelsey. Just moved Kirkin, Achane for Olave, Mostert. What are your thoughts? Give me Achane over Mostert in the long term. Give me Mostert over Achane in the short term. Give me Olave relatively easily over Kirk. I think we probably lost a little bit of raw value with this trade, but at the same time, it will help us be competitive right this second. Now, Alex Snodgrass, always happy to see my man saying, my guy, 2 quarterback super flex. We need running back help. We just traded Andrews for Puka, Henry Spears. Was this a good move? Depends on the team. We're not going to get to see the team, damn. So if we're looking at this, I mean, I would say most likely yes, right? Because there's also that outside chance. And I don't want to make our entire decision on this, but keeping it in the back of our mind, there's that outside chance that you end up getting Derrick Henry sent out of Tennessee. And if that were to occur, then at that point, I mean, you possibly have 2 starting running backs with that. So you have another trade, my Hill and Pierce for A.J. Brown and Pollard. Do we do it? Our running backs now are Pierce and Gibbs. Okay. So I'm assuming this is maybe another league, right? Because if we're looking at Andrews for Puka, Henry Spears, those should be our running backs. Tyreek to A.J. Brown is a clear downgrade. Pierce has no value at this point with Singletary dominating in snaps this past week. Tony Pollard is about equivalent of a late first-round pick. So I think, yes, you can go ahead and you can sell Tyreek Hill for what is essentially A.J. Brown and Tony Pollard, especially on a team where you don't necessarily feel super comfortable about your running back usage. Combat Cash Club says start Kmet or Michael Mayer this week. I will go Cole Kmet, my friend. Michael Mayer definitely someone that I want to roster and look at some long-term upside with. I don't think we can trust him right away. Christian says 1-5. Trade Jefferson, Jacobs for Adams and Khalil. I would say if we're 1-5, yes, we need to trade away Justin Jefferson. Are we trading Justin Jefferson and Josh Jacobs for Devontae Adams and Khalil Herbert? No, you're not getting nearly enough value. If we could sell Jefferson for Adams straight up on a 1-5 roster, then sure. But we're not going to pay Josh Jacobs to get it done. A lot of people make the argument Jacobs is more valuable than Devontae Adams in his own right. Kevin says 12-team full BBR, 3-2-1. We have Russ, Hill, Puka, Olave, Etienne, Saquon, Goddard, Addison, Watson, Pierce, Wandale, Keaton, Mitchell, Kareem Hunt. Any moves? We're 5-1. Well, my man, I'm assuming that we're going to have to take Jamal and Jeb Wilson Jr. off the IR. At this point, maybe you could just cut Jamal. The clear thing that we would point to is if we ever get an opportunity, obviously we're looking to go through and we are looking to upgrade at quarterback if we can. We don't want to be starting Russ from a week-to-week perspective. I mean, obviously we're not locking ourselves into Russell Wilson every single week, or at least I hope that we're not. I hope that instead we're going through and we're playing the matchups and just playing the streaming game here. I want to be holding on to Watson since it's a league where we start 3 wide receivers. Depth's going to matter a little bit more. I think I don't really have anything. I would say cut Keaton Mitchell, move Jeff Wilson Jr. off the IR. I would honestly look into possibly cutting another guy like Wandale Robinson, rostering 2 quarterbacks and playing the matchups between the quarterbacks from week to week perspective. I think that'd possibly be something that we're looking to do. Okay. Now, Aaron says 12-team PBR, 3-2. 3 wide receivers, 2 flex. We are 4-2. We have Bijan, Hall, Etienne, Keontae, Garrett Wilson, Amari, Ridley, Myers, Addison, Mims, Good offered Bijan and Myers for Chase and Madison. What do I do rest of season? In this format where we are highly incentivized to build around wide receiver, I mean, give me Chase over Bijan. Madison versus Myers. I honestly probably go Chase and Madison here. Because if you are looking at this situation that you have in Minnesota, while I was very worried about Alexander Madison previously, I mean, this past week, you actually have Cam Akers, I believe, only playing 9 snaps. So if Akers is only playing 9 snaps, I mean, all of a sudden that just makes it where you're significantly more willing to go out there and view Madison as that every week starter. Jack, always happy to see this. So should we trade Madison and Jameson for Burrow? Jameson, Tank, tomato, really up to you on who you'd be looking to sell there. It's Madison or Burrow. And if you're streaming quarterbacks right now, even though Madison does look more appealing than he did a week ago, I'd still go through. I'd take Burrow over him. I mean, Burrow can be in a very interesting spot, right? I mean, if we have Burrow coming out of the bye week looking healthy, and on top of that, you have T. Higgins coming out of the bye healthy, this Bengals offense may look very different than it did previously. Okay. Now, Caleb says 12-team non-PBR. We had Kupp, Tyreek, Ford, Moss, Waller, Hollywood, Pittman, Pierce, Hall. Traded Kupp, Hall for Etienne and Achane. Did we win? Hall, Achane. Give me Hall, Kupp, Etienne. Give me Etienne in a non-PBR format. If this was a PBR format, I would say you for sure wanted Cooper Kupp and Breece Hall over Travis Etienne and Devon Achane. Since it's a non-PBR league, I'm okay with it. I don't necessarily want to tell you that you won the deal. If you were like 4-2, if you're 5-1, if you were 6-0, and we are more so just thinking about long-term upside, then yeah, let's go for it. Okay. Now, CJ coming out saying 3-3 full PBR, where we have Stafford, Cousins, Jacobs, Gibbs, Montgomery, Spears, Hill, Kupp, Adams, Higgins, Deontay, Laporta, Pitts. Any moves? Probably a better running back or quarterback. Love your stuff, by the way. Thank you so much, my friend. Here, quarterback, I think we're going to be fine playing the matchups between Stafford and Cousins. Obviously, we're not playing Cousins anytime soon, just considering the fact that we have no Jefferson here. But in the long term, I think playing the matchups, we can get like a mid-quarterback one here from week-to-week perspective. Going over to running back, we're dealing with the David Montgomery injury for the time being, so we're just kind of stuck sitting on our hands. Going over to wide receiver, it's nice that we get Deontay back in. All I would say is if you did get an opportunity to go through and sell, like, honestly, no. The thing is, Davante Adams is undervalued right now. T. Higgins is undervalued. Deontay Johnson may even be undervalued. So if we get an opportunity down the road to potentially sell one of those wide receivers with a running back like Tajay Spears and go get an elite level guy that we can be excited about, then yeah, let's do it. But as it stands now, we're probably just going to be a little bit more patient for the time being. I think that we are in a pretty good spot. And I will say, just as a small side note, if you could go through it, if you could sell Sam Laporta or get TJ Hawkinson or to get Mark Andrews, I'd probably look to do that as well. And I understand that a lot of other people would rather have Laporta than those tight ends. So it is a possibility that we can actually get that move done. Now, Combat Cash coming out again saying, 12-team league with these players I want to try to acquire a running back. Gabe, Deonta Foreman, Ramondre Stevenson. How should we package for a running back upgrade? Typically, I mean, whenever we're going through and saying to sell players, we're talking about like exciting players that people want to trade for. It is very difficult to imagine that we are going to be able to get a lot for any of these individual assets. Like, I don't necessarily know who's excited to trade for Deontay Johnson, who's excited to trade for Gabe Davis, who's excited to trade for Ramondre Stevenson right now. If you are trying to get a running back, you're going to have to trade for another player that people aren't too excited about at the moment. You're going to have to go out there and try to get like Aaron Jones, right, coming off an injury. Maybe go try to get Saquon Barkley behind her in this offensive line. If you could maybe send Ramondre and Gabe Davis or Ramondre and Deontay to get that done, go for it. I just think it will be much easier said than done. Like, I don't know if anybody's going to be excited when you go, hey, I have Ramondre Stevenson's on the trade block. Ian says 3-3, 10 team. We have Mahomes, Montgomery, Stevenson, Kupp, Puka, Godwin, McLaurin, MT, Kittle. We did Mahomes, Gibbs, McLaurin, Godwin for Mostert, Cousins, Evans, Hunt, Cook. What are your thoughts? Mahomes to Mostert, give me Mahomes. Gibbs to Cousins, give me Gibbs. McLaurin to Evans, give me Evans, but who cares? Let's go Godwin, Evans. Godwin to James Cook, up to you in your roster. Kareem Hunt is literally a non-factor in this deal, so I think you lost. I think I would have rather had the Patrick Mahomes side. Just in case you haven't heard this analogy before, you probably have, but what I always go through and what I always compare this to is when you're selling like these 6 pieces, 4-6 pieces, and you're including guys with a ton of value, such as Patrick Mahomes in the deal, it's like you're going and negotiating on a house where you're like, hey, I really like this house. We're going to try to buy it, blah, blah, blah. And then you're sitting there, you're negotiating, saying, oh, I'm going to give you X amount of dollars. And they go, no. How about this? How about you give us an extra 10%, but in value, but we'll throw in the candle that was burning in the kitchen when you went and saw the house, right? Like something that's just completely meaningless in comparison to how big those other pieces are. Like Kareem Hunt in this trade is that candle. Like it literally does not matter. And this is coming from someone who has so much Kareem Hunt in Underdog Best Ball drafts that I hope I'm wrong. I hope Kareem Hunt comes out here and crushes. But in reality, he's probably not doing anything. So I think we fell for the candle. Now, Jeremy says PBR double flex, Elijah Bourne or Michael Mayer. We're going to go with both wide receivers. Never starting a tight end in the flex spot, especially not a rookie tight end that we've seen 1 week of. Moon coming out saying 10-team non-PBR, 3 receivers. 4-2, I traded Swift and Debo for Higgins and Amari. Debo to Amari, probably give me Amari. Swift to Higgins in a non-PBR format, give me Swift. Team is Field, Bijan, Etienne, JT. So this is a phenomenal team. And I understand why we did make this trade, right? You are sitting here and we have we have Bijan, Etienne, Jonathan Taylor, and DeAndre Swift. So if you're looking at that, you can maybe say, oh, okay, DeAndre Swift isn't necessarily, a must-have player with this team. Which I'd understand that thought process, but at the same time, ultimately it's a non-PBR format. Right? In this non-PBR league, you're going to be best off building around running back. It's a great team. I think if you were going to sell one of those running backs, you should have charged a premium. Now, Quino says, hey, Mason, please pick 2. Watson, Lockett, JT for week 7. I'm going to go with JT and Watson unless Metcalf misses. Then we pivot from Watson to Lockett. Carl says, start 2, Hollywood, London. We're going to go with Hollywood. And then Foreman or Warren. We're going to go Deonta Foreman with no Roshan. Now, Doug Fan Dan says, PBR standard scoring. Think Geno outscores Lawrence. I think Geno has a very good game. Considering the fact that if you are looking at Geno Smith, right now I believe you actually have the 3rd highest implied team total for the Seattle Seahawks this week. Gary coming out saying 12-team full BBR traded Kelsey Watson for Eckler Olave. Oh, great move. Love it. Team is Love, Eckler, Mixon, Pollard, AJ Lamb, Higgins, Ridley, and Joku Thomas. What are your thoughts? Great trade. Give me Eckler over Kelsey, especially as he's already through his bye and you're having to deal with the injury to Mike Williams. So you're going to be getting a bump up with the overall target volume for Austin Eckler in this offense. And then, I'd rather have Olave over Watson. Great move. AGZ says, is Jaleel worth my number 1 waiver? I would not think so. I think Jaleel, now that Javante's going to go, is in a 3-man running back by committee in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Now, Jaden says start Ayuk or Puka in a PPR format. I'm going to plan on, unless we get more news tomorrow or the next day, probably going to plan on Ayuk because I think Debo and CMC probably miss. I mean, they both missed practice today. Now, if they both play, then I would go Puka. Isaiah says, should we trade Myers, Deontay, and Moss and receive Montgomery, Aaron Jones? So Moss to Montgomery, massive upgrade to Montgomery. Myers to Aaron Jones, massive upgrade to Aaron Jones. We're paying Deontay to get it done. I would go ahead and make that move, my friend. Now, Ray says 12-team PPR trade Pacheco, Hawkinson for Jacobs and Kittle. Interesting trade. I'd rather have Jacobs over Pacheco. Give me Hawkinson over Kittle. I think Jacobs is probably the best player in the deal, so I'd probably go Jacobs, but it's extremely close there. Now, Alex from the Buzz says 12-team PBR double flex. We're 5-1. Should we trade Swift and Waddle for Mixon and Jefferson? So Swift to Mixon, slight downgrade, lateral move. Waddle to Jefferson, big time upgrade for the long term on a 5-1 roster. I don't necessarily think this is like a phenomenal price point. Like if you wanted to wait until after the week and see if we could start these guys for one more week and then go trade Jefferson for Jefferson next week when he's 1 week closer to returning. Let's do it. But specifically on a 5-1 roster, I think you can almost make this trade regardless. It's just up to you. Up to you there. Okay. Now, Storm says 12-team full BBR. We have Burrow, Wilson, CMC, Hall, Robinson, Jeff Wilson Jr., Cup, Lamb, Waddle, Flowers, Watson, MT, Jonnu, Frymuth. Any suggestions? And should we go for Michael Mayer or Logan Thomas? I mean, if you get him off the waiver wire, sure. But, I mean, if you wanted to pick up Logan Thomas off waivers to start over Jonnu Smith this week, not going to fault you. Just don't go trading for these guys. And then great team. I mean, honestly, it's a very boring suggestion. But when you have CMC injured, like I really think that this is a team that in the long term is set up nicely. But in the short term, you are going to be limited with the amount of moves that you're going to make just because we are waiting until CMC is going to go. So I'm probably just going to be sitting on our hands. And I think you're in a very good spot long term here. Now our next question coming out from, I believe Samuel says, have BBR need a flex between Foreman or Curtis Samuel? Deonta Foreman with no Roschon Johnson easily. And then another league, Foreman or Zach Evans. We're going to go Foreman if we have no Roschon. And when you play Jeff Wilson Jr., if he plays, probably not over Deonta Foreman if you have no Roschon. But I think that Jeff Wilson Jr. for sure should be at least rostered at the minimum. Now, Metro Boomin says, down bad, we lost Jefferson and Connor. It's a single flex league where we have Kirk, Purdy, Etienne, Brees, Gainwell, Evans, Waddle, Pittman, Palmer, JSN, Hawkinson. Any thoughts and any trades? So the thing is, we lose these guys. We don't really have the depth to make 2-for-1 deals, get upgraded in the starting lineup. So we have one of two options. One, we sell the injured players and get someone in that's going to be able to be productive for us right away. That's going to be what we want to do if we're 1-4. I'm sorry, if we're 1-5, if we're 2-4, maybe we have to go through and sell Jefferson and just get someone who's going to play right now. However, if we have a capable team behind him where we already are starting, say, Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman at wide receiver. We have Etienne Brees at running back. There, we're more so just going to be sitting on our hands and waiting until these guys return. I don't see our record. The only thing I'd say is you probably have to sell the injured players if you're like 2-4, 1-5. But outside of that, I think you have a strong enough team to just kind of wait. Okay. Now, Rasta says, 10-team, happy BR, 5-1. We have Hurts, Bijan, Walker, Diggs, Puka, Andrews, Robinson, London, Kyron, Roschon, Spears, Rice, Zay. Guy willing to trade Jefferson, Waddle, Pierce, and Nico. Do we make a trade or keep the team as is? He also has Devon Achane. I'd say 5-1 roster, we are for sure in the market to trade for Jefferson, right? Just comes down to what can we do? If you wanted to trade like Diggs for Jefferson and Waddle and get the short-term downgrade from Diggs to Waddle, but get the long-term upgrade from Diggs to Jefferson, I think that'd make a lot of sense. If you wanted to go through, if you wanted to see if we can make a 2-for-1 deal, I mean, we're sending away, say, like Puka and Brian Robinson, if somehow we could get to Jefferson for that, that'd be, I mean, obviously no brainer. I just think much easier said than done. But this is a great team. It's a 10-team league with one flex spot as well. So you do have a lot of maneuverability in what we can do with this roster. Jacob says, start who? Gibbs, Rashee Rice, or Joshua Palmer? Will be Jahmyr Gibbs for me relatively easily. Even though sounds like they don't want to play him, they are going to be forced to play him. Jordan says, is Myers a hold with the Adams rumors? Yeah, I think Jacoby Myers is a hold. Don't want to be saying to sell. I definitely don't want to be telling people to go out there and buy. I have Myers ranked as that like low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3 rest of season. But I think that should be it for this live stream, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to keep it brief. Tonight, only an hour. This is the shortest live stream we've done all season. But nonetheless, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We're going to live stream every single day until 2024. And of course, if you wanted to check out any of those pick'ems over on Underdog Fantasy, you can find that link in the live chat, in the description, in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, 100% deposit match, plus our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers, plus a Lamar Jackson special pick'em more than less than half a total yard. And on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, an Amon-Ra St. Brown special pick'em for next week, more than less than half a total yard. And on top of that, ladies and gentlemen, literally never seen this before. Take advantage of it. LeBron James, more than less than half a total point for NBA tip-off. Make sure you're taking advantage of that. Only getting all through with promo code FLOCK. And Austin, we will go Ferguson over Luke Musgrave. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Really do appreciate you. Really hope you have a great night. And really hope I get to see you out in the live stream tomorrow night.